The Hexecutioners is one of those films that could have been really interesting, and if it had been executed, really resisted the temptation to say executed there, then if it had been executed more effectively, it could have been really good. But I feel like it was trying to do too much, whereas if it had just focused on one aspect, which I'll talk about in a moment, I think it would have been a lot better. If it had been more psychologically horrific, it could have been good. But as far as horrors go, it's middle of the road. 4.1 out of 10 on IMDb. That's a lot less than I would give it. I'd say I'd give it a 5, 5.5. You know, as far as the actual production quality go, it's not bad. The editing's not bad. The acting's not bad. It's just not great. It was released in 2015, directed by Jesse Thomas Cook, written by Tony Burgess, and stars among others Liv Collins, Sarah Power, Timothy Burd. And the description from IMDb, I think, sums it up quite nicely without spoiling too much. And this says, 2 disparate young women working for a company that conducts euthanasia are dispatched to a remote estate to perform a custom-assisted suicide ritual, but unwittingly summon the wraiths of the death cult that once inhabited the property. Something really fascinating about the phrase death cult. It seems like the most aggressive phrase ever. The euthanasia aspect is something that I thought would be really fascinating. I'm very fascinated by that as a subject matter, and, you know, there are certain countries that think it should be legalised, etc. And I thought, well, this will be kind of interesting. Let's see what they're going to do with this. And then they have the kind of summoning these demons, and that's when I thought it got a bit far-fetched. Visually, it's fine. You know, the editing is quite good, actually, and the development of the narrative that's presented is reasonable. I just feel like it took the wrong direction. Maybe it's just what I prefer, but I think they should have gone down the psychological horror aspect. One could argue that this death cult, or this demonic presence, is representative of the state of mind. You could go even further down this by saying, you know, if you were particularly religious, this demonic presence was brought forward because the Lord doesn't want you to commit suicide. It's not your decision to choose when you die. You know, you could read a lot into it if you wanted to, but I don't think any of that is forced in the film. I don't think it's presented. I don't know if there was a deeper meaning to this, because I don't feel like the film itself is that deep unless you want to make the effort to look for these things. But I do think they could have gone down a slightly more psychological route of, you know, things going wrong for the individual, or the individual starting to hallucinate, maybe alluding to the fact that it's a demonic presence, but it's actually their state of mind when maybe the euthanasia goes wrong, and it shows that if it goes wrong and you don't die, you know, you'd start to lose your mind, but you're still alive, so maybe don't try and commit suicide. They could have given a really positive message with that. It was an interesting idea. The execution, I'm so sorry. The execution was, I think they did what they wanted to do with it, and I think they did it well, but it's just not what I wish they'd done with it. I would have taken this in a different direction. I would have definitely had a different kind of outcome and a different message, or at least the message that I read from it. So it's not a bad film on its own. I just think it could have been a lot better if they'd decided to try and do something a bit different, a little bit more meaningful. But if you're into horrors and euthanasia, then I'd say The Hexecutioners is still pretty worth checking out.